For millions of seniors, the warm aroma of a fresh cup of coffee is more than a morning ritual. It's comfort, routine, and sometimes even the key to feeling human again at the start of a sluggish day. But what if I told you that enjoying that coffee after 8 a.m. could silently be undermining your energy levels, hormonal balance, heart health, and even accelerating cognitive decline without you realizing it? This might come as a surprise, but the danger isn't the coffee itself, it's the timing. After the age of 65, your body undergoes fundamental shifts in hormone regulation, especially in the way it handles cortisol, the hormone that helps control wakefulness, metabolism, blood sugar, and inflammation. Cortisol naturally spikes in the early morning between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. as part of your body's built-in wake-up system, signaling your brain to transition from sleep mode to active mode. But when you drink coffee after 8 a.m., especially if you've already started your day without it, the caffeine floods your system at a time when cortisol is naturally dropping. Rather than enhancing your alertness, this mistimed caffeine hit confuses your adrenal system, leading to a stressful cortisol rebound later in the day. This can trigger jitteriness, irritability, blood pressure spikes, and most concerning, deep disruptions to your circadian rhythm. Seniors are already more vulnerable to fragmented sleep, and drinking coffee too late in the morning resets your internal body clock in a way that leads to delayed melatonin production at night, making it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep even if you feel physically tired. Over time, this sleep fragmentation worsens memory formation, increases nighttime urination, elevates inflammation, and weakens immune resilience. Even worse, new research now shows that when caffeine is consumed after the cortisol peak window, it creates what's known as cortisol-caffeine conflict syndrome, a condition that affects older adults disproportionately by causing fatigue in the afternoon and insomnia at night. This results in a dangerous cycle. Seniors wake up exhausted from poor sleep, drink more coffee later and later in the morning, suffer hormonal crashes mid-afternoon, and then stay awake late into the night because their brains are overstimulated. This perpetual cycle not only contributes to chronic fatigue, but also increases your risk of high blood pressure, cognitive fog, type 2 diabetes, and even heart rhythm problems like atrial fibrillation. But it doesn't stop there. Coffee also triggers gastric acid secretion and bile production. Great when your metabolism is firing on all cylinders in your 20s and 30s, but after 65, the aging digestive tract can struggle with this sudden morning stimulation, especially when combined with medications or taken on an empty stomach. Seniors often report acid reflux, bloating, and irregular bowel movements after morning coffee. And many don't realize that it's the timing, not just the content, that's to blame. Studies out of European geriatric clinics have shown that when seniors shift their coffee intake to before 8 a.m. and pair it with light food, the negative impact on sleep, digestion, and blood pressure sharply declines. Even better, those who delayed their first caffeine dose until after eating a small breakfast showed improved insulin sensitivity and cortisol regulation within 10 days. And here's the real kicker. When you drink coffee after your natural cortisol peak, your body becomes dependent on caffeine to stimulate wakefulness rather than producing it naturally. This dependency weakens your adrenal resilience over time, reducing your ability to handle stress and making you more susceptible to anxiety, panic attacks, or sudden fatigue in the face of minor emotional stressors. For seniors who are already navigating complex medication regimens, underlying inflammation, or memory concerns, this invisible drain on hormonal balance can tip the scales toward rapid decline. So while your morning cup may feel harmless or even helpful, it's the hour you drink it that can make the difference between feeling alert or exhausted, stable or moody, calm or jittery. The fix isn't to give up coffee altogether. It's to align your coffee habits with your biology. Aim to consume your coffee between 6 a.m. and 7:45 a.m., ideally within 30 minutes of waking, and pair it with a small amount of protein or healthy fat to stabilize your cortisol rhythm. Doing so can lead to more restorative sleep improved digestion, steadier blood pressure, and even better memory retention, all without sacrificing the daily joy of your favorite brew. And if you're used to having a second or third cup later in the morning, try replacing it with herbal adaptogens like ashwagandha tea or tulsi leaf, which support adrenal recovery without overstimulating your nervous system. Small timing shifts can create massive changes in your longevity, energy, and peace of mind, especially after 65, when every system in your body is more sensitive to rhythm disruption. So before you reach for that mug at 9 or 10 a.m., pause and ask, is this cup lifting you up or setting you up for a crash you'll feel hours or even years later? What makes this hidden danger even more concerning is how common a habit is among seniors who wake up groggy, skip breakfast, and sip their coffee during late morning hours or even into the early afternoon, thinking they're giving themselves a gentle energy boost, when in reality, they're disrupting deeply sensitive hormonal systems that regulate aging, brain clarity, digestion, and nighttime repair processes. After age 65, your pineal gland production of melatonin, the hormone responsible for sleep, naturally starts to decline, making you more reliant on a clean circadian rhythm to maintain quality rest. But when caffeine enters the system after the body's natural cortisol curve has peaked and begun its decline, it tricks the brain into pushing melatonin release further into the evening, delaying sleep onset, shortening sleep duration, and breaking up the deep stages of sleep your brain and body need to detoxify and regenerate. This effect is especially dramatic in older adults whose natural melatonin levels are already compromised and whose kidneys metabolize caffeine more slowly, meaning that caffeine consumed at 10 a.m. or later can remain in the bloodstream well into the evening hours, quietly sabotaging your ability to fall into the deep stages of delta wave sleep required for memory consolidation, tissue repair, and immune system reset. This leads to what sleep scientists now call silent fragmentation, where you may not even wake up fully during the night, but your brain is pulled out of deep sleep cycles multiple times, causing you to feel unrest even after a full 8 hours in bed. The result? Chronic morning fatigue, irritability, poor memory, and increased risk of falls, mood disorders, and inflammatory diseases that are now directly linked to poor sleep architecture. But it doesn't stop there. Recent studies have shown that the timing of caffeine intake also plays a major role in senior cardiovascular health. Drinking coffee after 8 a.m., particularly on an empty stomach or when stressed, can trigger the sympathetic nervous system, your body's fight-or-flight response, and lead to sharp, temporary increases in heart rate and blood pressure. In a young, healthy adult, this might not cause major issues, but in someone over 65 with stiffened arteries, weakened heart muscle, or a history of atrial fibrillation, these sudden surges in blood pressure can increase the risk of heart rhythm abnormalities, angina, and even stroke. In fact, research from a European Society of Cardiology now warns that seniors with a history of hypertension or palpitations should avoid coffee after their cortisol peak to reduce these risk spikes. Add to this the interaction between caffeine and commonly prescribed medications such as beta blockers, statins, diuretics, and sleep aids, and the danger compounds. Caffeine can interfere with the way your liver metabolizes these medications through the cytochrome P450 enzyme system, leading to fluctuating drug levels in the bloodstream that may either reduce the effectiveness of the medication or increase side effects like dizziness, fatigue, or gastric distress. Coffee after 8 a.m. also increases gastric acid production throughout the rest of the day, which can worsen symptoms of acid reflux, a condition that disproportionately affects seniors and is often overlooked because its symptoms, chronic cough, chest tightness, or hoarseness, can mimic other age-related issues. When you add all of these factors together, hormonal misalignment, sleep disruption, heart stress, medication interference, and digestive complications, it becomes clear that late morning or midday coffee isn't just a harmless preference, but potentially a compounding contributor to the very issues that many seniors are trying desperately to manage or avoid. And ironically, Most people who rely on late coffee to wake them up are actually fueling the cycle of fatigue it causes. By overstimulating the adrenals and delaying rest hormones, seniors enter a destructive loop of low morning energy, high midday stimulation, and restless nights that feel like a mystery but are really the result of mistimed caffeine. The good news is this cycle can be reversed quickly once the underlying cause is addressed. When seniors switch to consuming their coffee earlier, within 30 to 45 minutes of waking and ideally before 8 a.m., they begin to synchronize their energy levels with their body's natural cortisol rhythm, which reduces dependency on caffeine throughout the day. In fact, many seniors report that they naturally reduce the number of cups they consume just by shifting the first one earlier, and they often begin sleeping more soundly and waking more refreshed within a week. And for those who still crave a comforting hot beverage later in the morning, decaffeinated chicory root coffee or roasted dandelion tea can serve as nourishing, liver-supporting alternatives that offer the same cozy ritual without the metabolic and hormonal backlash. These subtle but powerful changes in timing, not necessarily the ingredients themselves, are what enable seniors to restore balance in systems that have become fragile with age. After all, the goal isn't to take away coffee. It's to make coffee serve you instead of silently harming you. So if you're over 65 and finding yourself relying more and more on coffee to function late in the morning or afternoon, consider whether your body is actually asking for more caffeine or simply responding to years of misaligned rhythms that need resetting. Because the key to more energy, better sleep, and longer health span might be as simple as changing the hour of your first cup. Perhaps one of the most surprising discoveries from recent research is how deeply the timing of coffee interacts with cognitive decline and brain aging in older adults, especially those over the age of 65 whose brains are more vulnerable to subtle disruptions in neurotransmitter balance and hormonal cycles. What many seniors don't realize is that caffeine directly influences adenosine, a neurotransmitter that builds up in the brain during waking hours to create sleep pressure and signal the body when it's time to rest. By blocking adenosine, caffeine keeps us alert, but when consumed too late in the morning or into the afternoon, it interferes with this natural buildup, reducing the restorative sleep that clears amyloid plaques from the brain, which are now recognized as early markers of Alzheimer's disease. In fact, studies from sleep neuroscience labs show that older adults who regularly consume caffeine after 8 or 9 a.m. experience significantly less slow-wave sleep, the deep brain-cleaning sleep that acts like a nightly detox for the aging mind. Without this cleanup process, metabolic waste accumulates in the brain and can accelerate memory problems, mood disturbances, and overall cognitive decline. What's more alarming is that most seniors never connect these changes to their morning coffee habits because the symptoms develop slowly. More grogginess upon waking, more dependence on the next cup, more forgetting names or misplacing objects, and are often dismissed as normal aging, when in fact they are correctable consequences of overstimulated and dysregulated sleep-wake cycles. And because older bodies process caffeine more slowly, the same amount that once felt energizing can now linger in the bloodstream for up to 12 hours, overlapping with the body's natural melatonin release in the evening and further confusing the internal clock. This internal clock, known as the circadian rhythm, is responsible for much more than just sleep. It regulates digestion, hormone release, immune function, and even cell repair. When caffeine is mistimed, especially in the second half of the morning or early afternoon, it sends a false signal that it's still daytime, delaying crucial processes like melatonin production, gut repair, and immune modulation that are scheduled for the evening. This can lead to chronic inflammation, elevated cortisol at night, and impaired insulin sensitivity, all of which are risk factors for diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and autoimmune disorders. And this doesn't just affect health in an abstract sense. Seniors who habitually drink coffee later in the morning are more likely to report late-night urination, hot flashes, restless legs, heart palpitations, and even depression, symptoms that are often treated with medications without ever identifying caffeine timing as the root cause. In fact, many commonly prescribed senior medications such as antihypertensives, antacids, and antidepressants have interactions with caffeine that can either heighten side effects or reduce drug efficacy, particularly when liver enzymes become overloaded from processing both caffeine and pharmaceutical compounds. Moreover, for seniors with digestive issues like acid reflux, IBS, or gastritis, late morning coffee can act as a silent trigger by stimulating stomach acid and bile production after the ideal digestive window has passed. This can lead to bloating, discomfort, and even damage to the esophageal lining when combined with decreased stomach elasticity and slower gut motility associated with age. Even decaffeinated coffee, though lower in caffeine, is acidic and may pose similar risks if consumed outside of optimal metabolic timing. So while coffee is often praised for its antioxidant benefits and its association with reduced risks of Parkinson's and certain cancers, these benefits are largely dependent on timing, quantity, and individual sensitivity, factors that shift dramatically with age. Seniors often assume that their decades-long habits must still be safe because they've done them for years. But the truth is the aging body operates differently, and what once helped can now quietly harm. That's why it's not enough to ask whether you should drink coffee. It's far more important to ask when. For the aging body, even half an hour makes a difference. By aligning caffeine intake with your body's natural cortisol peak, usually between 6:30 and 8 a.m., you leverage the hormonal momentum your body already has, rather than forcing a secondary surge later that causes internal disruption. This alignment supports natural energy patterns, enhances digestive efficiency, and protects your evening melatonin release, which governs not just sleep, but regeneration across nearly every system in the body. When seniors make this change, they often experience benefits that feel disproportionate to the action taken. Waking up more easily, sleeping deeper, digesting more comfortably, and thinking more clearly, not because they've added a new medication or supplement, but because they've stopped sending conflicting signals to their biology. This is the quiet power of respecting your circadian rhythm. And it starts with something as deceptively simple as deciding when to drink your first cup. As we reach the final insight into this surprisingly dangerous daily habit, it becomes abundantly clear that for seniors over 65, drinking coffee after 8 a.m. is not merely a harmless preference, but a potentially health-disrupting choice that interferes with almost every major system in the aging body. The cumulative effect of drinking coffee late in the morning, and especially into the early afternoon, extends far beyond sleep disruption or a jittery feeling. It has profound ripple effects on inflammation, hormone cycles, heart function, mental clarity, emotional stability, and even the immune system's ability to protect against infections and age-related diseases. The reason is that caffeine, while a powerful stimulant, is also a metabolic disruptor when consumed at the wrong time of day. Seniors metabolize caffeine more slowly due to reduced liver enzyme activity, and this delay causes caffeine to remain active in the bloodstream long after its alertness effects have worn off, continuing to stimulate adrenal responses like cortisol and epinephrine secretion. These stress hormones, when elevated persistently, damage blood vessels, raise blood pressure, and even accelerate biological aging at the cellular level by shortening telomeres, the protective caps on our DNA that determine how fast we age. Worse still, this artificial cortisol spike created by mid or late morning coffee can flatten the natural cortisol rhythm. So instead of a healthy curve that rises early and falls gently through the day, seniors are left with irregular hormonal spikes that confuse their internal clocks, leading to fatigue, poor appetite regulation, nighttime restlessness, and impaired cognitive processing. You may have noticed that the days you feel most forgetful, agitated, or anxious are also the days when you needed that second cup or had coffee later than usual. and that's not a coincidence. Caffeine timing affects hippocampal function, the part of your brain responsible for memory consolidation. And by disturbing this rhythm, it limits your brain's ability to process, store, and recall information efficiently. Another overlooked consequence is the impact on digestion and hydration. Most seniors already experience decreased stomach acid production and slower gut motility, and adding caffeine late in the morning can overstimulate gastric juices and bile after breakfast has already passed, increasing the risk of acid reflux, bloating, and even nutrient malabsorption. And because caffeine is a diuretic, drinking it past the optimal hydration window causes your body to flush water more aggressively, contributing to dehydration. One of the most common but least recognized causes of fatigue, confusion, and falls among older adults. Imagine this chain reaction. A cup of coffee at 10 a.m. leads to more urination by noon, reduced electrolyte balance by early afternoon, restless sleep by night, and poorer cognition the next day, which then drives the need for another late coffee. It's a cycle many seniors don't even realize they're trapped in. The good news is that breaking this cycle doesn't require giving up coffee entirely. It simply requires moving it earlier, ideally between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m., when your body is naturally waking up and cortisol is peaking. Drinking coffee during this window supports your body's own energy rhythm rather than overriding it. You'll find yourself needing less coffee overall, sleeping more soundly, and waking more refreshed. Those with sensitive digestion may also benefit from drinking their coffee after a small breakfast rather than on an empty stomach to avoid triggering excess acid. And if you still crave something warm after 8 a.m., consider switching to herbal teas or warm lemon water, which support digestion and hydration without disrupting hormones. Over time, seniors who adopt this earlier coffee habit report more stable energy throughout the day, fewer naps, more restorative sleep, less anxiety, and even improved regularity in bowel movements. All because their body's natural circadian rhythms are no longer being confused or hijacked. Your body, especially after 60, craves consistency, not stimulation. It rewards you when you support its natural timing, and punishes you subtly but steadily when you ignore it. The timing of your morning beverage may seem trivial, but for an aging body with a delicate hormonal balance and slower metabolism, it's a decision with real health consequences. So the next time you reach for that mid-morning cup out of habit, pause and ask yourself, am I helping my body or confusing it? The answer could be the difference between chronic fatigue and vibrant energy, between restless nights and deep sleep, between foggy thoughts and sharp focus. Aligning your coffee habits with your body's biology may be the single most impactful change you make this year. And if you found this information eye-opening, make sure to subscribe to Healthful Living 60 Plus for more senior-focused health insights backed by science and delivered with care. We're here to help you live longer, feel stronger, and enjoy every year to its fullest. Tap that like button, share this video with someone you care about, and stay tuned for our next video, because every small habit adds up to a longer, healthier life.